ahead and start. My name is Dave Greenspan. I head up community development and special projects for Lorain County. And I want to welcome you here today at this Transit Summit. Those of you familiar with the strategic plan that the county worked on for about 18 months, know that one of the primary topics that came out of the strategic plan had to do with transit. And it's important that we're having this discussion because mobility is so important as we move through Lorain County, whether it's for education, whether it's for healthcare, whether it's for employment, or just general lifestyle enhancements. So I'll start over. My name but I want to introduce, doesn't need any introductions, Commissioner Dave Moore. Dave has been instrumental, Commissioner Moore has been instrumental in this subject going back nearly 20 years when he was county commissioner back in the early part of I won't say the century, that makes us sound so old, but about 20 years ago. And he's fought very hard to ensure that we are where we are today because this has been such an important issue to him, and a lot of the credit for where we are goes to Commissioner Moore and his vision for improving transit throughout Lorain County. So with that, Commissioner, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm David Moore, Lorain County Commissioner. I ran for County Commissioner back in 2000. I thought I'd try that out, and I won. I was the first Republican since 1956. And after that 4 years, I thought I'd never do that again. I thought I didn't run for re-election. So I had very young girls at the time, and I understand what politics is like. I saw it firsthand the first time. I was young, and I got back into politics again in 2016 in the party, and wasn't happy with what I saw in Columbus, and I decided to get back in 2020 and ran, and we won. And then in 2024, I ran for re-election and was the first Republican since 1944 when we invaded Normandy. Think about that, 80 years of one-party control. And I say one-party control because there was a lot of issues the first 2 years that I was here in 2020, and when my book's out, you can read what really happened, okay? So, for those that follow. So, what happened about 24 years ago? I get in the office, and well, I go back even farther, when I was a band geek in the 70s. This new concept came out up in Davison, Michigan, which is outside of Flint. And my father was a teacher with 5 kids. Before I turned 6, there was 5 of us, and no twins. And so there wasn't a lot of money, and I used Dial-A-Ride, a new concept. For a quarter, I could get from downtown to Davison, where the school, and we lived out in the country, out in the townships, and I was at the farthest point that they would go. And that's how I got to participate in after-school activities. And I thought Dial-A-Ride was a great program for me. Gave me some freedom before I had a car. So that was my first experience out in the country, out in the townships, and that's always stuck with me. So I come in 2001, I'm a commissioner, and I'm looking at transit, and as everybody in this room knows, when you drive around and you see our fixed route system, nobody's on it. We spend a lot of money on our transit system. So I started asking the county transit authority at that time, how do we make our system more efficient? How do we make it more valuable? And so people use it. And I was asking the numbers, how does the numbers fit? How do we make it work? And I couldn't get anybody off the ground zero. After 6 months of not getting anything, we demoted the individual, but I could never get off ground zero and move forward with our transit system. I decided, because my daughters were young, I didn't run for re-election. So I come back, 2021, I start going to meetings. And I started going to these meetings in the city of Lorain, nonprofit groups. It's all about transit. This is in 2021. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, wow, in 2001, it's the same thing again. We need more money to make it work. We need this, we need that. Look what Denmark does. Look what Cleveland, look at what Las Vegas, look at all these huge cities and how successful they are. Well, you know what? We aren't them. We are Lorain County. Our population is 322,000 people. We have 2 major cities here, Elyria and Lorain. And they've tried twice since I was a commissioner the first time to pass a levy for transit, which failed miserably, not in the cities, but it failed because the county would not support a tax. So we started working on it, but those that follow county politics knows that the first 2 years in 21 and 22 were not very successful. So in 23 we started working on transit again. And I thought, and a lot of other things. And then the city of Lorain called us up and they said that we're working on the system. And I know they're going to speak to it too also, so I'll save some of that on how this came about. And I remember Mayor Bradley calling me up and he says, hey, can you come down here? You need to sign a document, right? Veronica tells a better story, but well, it was funny, last time we had this meeting, I heard a lot of things that I did that I didn't know I did until Karen and Veronica reminded me, so I don't have a script, I ad-lib a lot, okay? So this is the world according to Dave tonight, okay? So I remember going along the lake, trying to hurry up and get downtown Lorain so I could sign this document. So I get in there and I'm looking at it and I'm like, uh-oh. You need permission from the whole board. I'm just one out of 3. And then they found out that they were needing to apply to get all this federal funds for this new concept. To me, VIA kind of reminded me of the old dial-a-ride system, something a little bit more private, a little bit more personal. That's why it stuck with me. And I said, okay, I'm on board. So I called up the other, the county administrators to see what we can do with the 2 commissioners. Can we get it on the agenda just off the floor? We need to pass it tomorrow because we've got to have it in by 4 o'clock Friday. This is Thursday, so our meeting's on Friday. We have to get it in so that we can get this $2.8 million for this pilot program for 2027. Okay, boom, boom, did it. But what stuck with me is like, this was 2024. This was March, April of 2024. Why do we have to wait 3 years? You know, we got a lot of ARPA funds that came in. And you know what? We hate to say it, we really didn't need all that money. So what we did is we used a lot of the ARPA funds to invest in ourselves, our infrastructure. Some of it was spent wisely, some of it I'll disagree with, was not spent wisely, but this money was. What we did is we took that money as lost revenue and we advanced it and said, let's do it now. Why wait till 2027? Let's do it now. That's how much I believe in this program. So we invested as a county to take that money and start this program within 90 days. So on July 15th, I think it was, we kicked it off. The world famous photo of the mayor of Lorain, which I like to pick on both of them because they got a lot of trouble for me using that photo. And and the reason why we did that photo, folks, because it was 2 days after the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. And I wanted us as Democrats and Republicans arm in arm telling the world that locally, we are working for you. We don't have problems locally that affect our day-to-day lives. That was that message that we really wanted to forget about it. But at the time, it was 2 days after, in the world, if you remember, we were all on edge. And I thought, and the mayors all agreed, we want to show our county that political party means nothing when you got mayors and commissioners working together, which you haven't had in 20 or 30 years, guys. And a lot of you may not know this, but it was not a nice relationship that the commissioners had with the rest. Everybody had their little fights, okay? And what we've been pushing for is to show you that we're all about partnerships. When ARPA came out, I wasn't like, hey, this is our money. What I did is I went out to the townships, to the cities, to everybody and said, what can we partner for? For example, like in Lorain with the water park, I said, hey, you know what? They want money from the government. I'll match what you got. So we're going to take that money and make it even bigger. Same with the township. Say we need money for this project. We'll cut it in half. We'll give you the other half, and together we can make that project even more and spread those ARPA dollars even more. And that's my segue. I'm going to let somebody else segue. That's Karen's segue to how we're going to partner down the road. So she'll close with that. So we've been pushing partnerships, fiefdoms. And what VIA has proven to, I'm hoping, with the city of Lorain and the city of Elyria and the rest of the communities watching us, is that you can work with the county commissioners. You can trust us to work together as partners. And that's, the VIA, you're going to hear a lot of stories today about all these success stories. But to me, what I learned last night, talking and listening to people, is that I think what VIA has done for us as a community has broken so many barriers in political subdivisions of divisions and political, all that stuff that divides us, I believe this is bringing us together. Because now what we're doing is we're trying to prove to the world here in Lorain County that transit can work if it's done right. And this is being done right. It's being done within our budget, because everybody's talking about taxes. And guess what? We get grant money about $5 million a year. So my push is, okay, we're gonna get $5 million. How do we implement the VIA program into our fixed route system and reduce the fixed route system as we increase the VIA popularity? And without going to the taxpayers, let's face it, a majority of this county is gonna say, buy your own car, when we find out that 73% of our riders don't even have access to a car. Okay? And the beauty of what VIA has given us is data. So we know who's using it. We know who's actually, what their needs are, what their wants are, where do they need to go. And some of the statistics that Karen's going to talk about is amazing, and I love statistics. And VIA has the ability to provide us with statistics that know what's working and what isn't working. And we can make those changes immediately within a week. We can make some changes, tweak it, and find out certain areas aren't really using it. Let's move it over here and move it over there. Hey, this is where the hospitals are. This is where the grocery, this is where they want to go. And so that's the ability that we have with VIA. Now I'm one of those guys, they call me a squirrel, and I'm over here and I'm over there. Okay. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to come back to where I'm supposed to go. So my goal with Karen, she said, what do you want me to talk about? She goes, talk about the past, talk about the present, and then talk future. So that's something to do as I'm going in and out here. Okay. So that was the past. I was just to a point where I came back, wanted to deal with transit. I feel in my heart that I don't want to say we fixed it, but Lorain and Elyria is sold on this system. So much so that they are willing to financially partner. Because now that we've been successful, and we knew we were successful within 30 to 60 days, we're like, holy cow, this is working. We have people using the system that's never used our fixed route systems before. So that's why we're meeting now. It has not even been a year that this program has been initiated. It was back in July. We had every newspaper, I was on NPR, think about that, inviting me to NPR to talk about this, and I was. And it was a great 20-minute interview. Every TV station's been out here about Lorain County and our transit system and how we're fixing it and how we're providing for those that need to be provided for, which is what I believe our job is as public servants. And so I think there's a lot to be proud of. I'm very proud of to be a part of a team, but it isn't just the county commissioners. It's the employees at the county, it's the employees at the cities. They're the ones that are working, and they're the ones that are filling out the paperwork, making sure we're doing it right. It's VIA providing us with the employees. They take over, they're the ones hiring, they're the ones providing it. We actually fronted the money. The difference with the county coming in is that we advance the funds so we don't have to wait. And now, what's going on is, I'm not gonna be political, but we don't know what's gonna happen next year, right? All these cuts we're hearing about from DC, how's that gonna trickle down to us locally? The ARPA hangover is here today. I mean, the mayors, the township trustees, we're all struggling. How are we gonna move forward financially? How do we know what's even gonna be cut? How do we know if this is gonna survive, what's gonna happen, because we don't know. We've already taken that initiative last year, knowing that this was coming. I am looking at 26 and 27 already as a budget for the county and how we're going to move forward. How we're going to maintain the services without cutting these services and hurting those that need it the most. And these are the issues that we're dealing today, but as a commissioner. But what we're also talking about today is how do we save programs like this? How do we move forward to make sure financially we can fund this program and not have to go to the taxpayers? Because right now, if anybody owns any homes, you know what that tax bill looked like this year, and it wasn't happy. And right now, we got a lot of issues coming up in May with some school levies. In November, there's some taxes that we're going to be asking the people for more, and I don't know if it's going to pass. So my goal is to keep this system, the transit system, to become a success and remain a success, because we all know the fixed route system does not work in Lorain County. It just doesn't work. Nobody rides them. And Karen will probably go into more detail on the numbers of new riders, and she did, last night I heard it, and I was really excited to hear what I heard. I'm gonna do a quick plug and let some others speak. We spent, was it 2010 that we did this remodel here? 2010, 100% of the money from the federal government remodeled this train station. 15 years ago, look how brand new it looks, you know. Now you're thinking, wow, that's why, but that's because nobody's used it. And the federal government got on us. Was it this year, last year? They said this year, they're telling us, give us the money back. And they're like, we have to use this building. There was a lot of dreaming, thinking the train's gonna come, we're gonna use it for this, we're gonna use it for that, and nothing got done. So that's my commercial plug. Minimum 2 hours, it's $200 an hour, $400 you can rent this facility out. Okay, so this is my commercial plug. We now have 3 rentals, so I'm excited about that. It goes through the Visitors Bureau, which is Gary Gibbs. So get on our website and do that. And a couple other things I want to touch base on. We started doing this via program in the middle of a strategic plan. So we already knew we had this fixed. So before it even went public, the strategic plan, because sometimes it's pretty obvious what you need to do. And it was so cool when the strategic plan came out and said, here are the needs, we already filled it. And that's when you know you're onto something very good. When the community tells you what you need and you've already fixed it, that's a great feeling as a public official. So 2 more things I'm going to touch on. With transportation, there's a thing called roads and potholes you might have heard about. We're going to have 2 public meetings in April in regards to a permissive tax. It's $5 for your license fee. You're going to hear a lot about that here in the month of April. This is something that to a lot of people, they're not too happy about it, but it's $5. But for every $5 we spend, we get $20 in federal tax dollars. So it's one of those makes sense. We get more money to help fix our roads. The next thing you're going to hear about, this is why I'm talking the way I am, is the jail. We need a new jail. Now, how are we going to pay for it? It's going to be $100 million. Here, it was at $185 million. I fought, got down to 85. Now we're back to 100. And hopefully in the month of May, we're going to talk about that. And the whole goal is to make it efficient, less employees, but we're going to ask the public to ask them to support it, because we're going to be asking for a sales tax to pay for it. So that's coming. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in next year. We're really working hard in June, and in the end of July, we have to pass a pre-budget, and there's going to be a lot more details coming out at the county level in regards to that. But transportation to me is always, when I'm talking to all the business owners, that's all I hear. We need workers. There's a lot of people in this county that don't have driver's license. They have state IDs, but they don't have driver's license. And this fixes that. And I'm asking all the communities that want this, like Oakland wants this. I know Avon's looking for it over there where Cabela's is. Lots of jobs over there. They want employees. They want help to how do we get over there? Well, this fixes that. But we're going to be asking for partnerships not only from the communities, but from the private sector. To say it costs us $18 per rider, and we're only charging $2. You may think that it's a lot, but let me tell you something. It's $28 nationally. Via brings it down to 18, and we're trying to get it down to 12. But we need help from the private sector, the municipalities, and the county. By having a partnership, I believe Lorain County is not only going to fix it, but I want it to stay fixed, so they don't have to run 20 years from now and do it again. So that's my segue, my closing. How's that? Okay. But thank you all for coming, and I'm going to update from day to day. There you go.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And you see the history, and you see his passion for this subject. And the Commissioner was correct. When we started the strategic plan, this genie was out of the bottle. We knew that transit was an issue. But what was interesting is during the strategic plan, I think Todd Sharkey, he and I would sit next to each other, and we almost wagered jokingly what was going to be the first subject brought up and how soon would transit be brought up. And in the 50 meetings we had, transit was more than likely the first item brought up and was brought up early in the discussion, so the Commissioner's 100% correct. This is something that you identified as an issue, it's something that they had been working on. So candidly, when Mark wins in the strategic plan, this is an easy one to put a check by as well, because the Commissioners had already started working on this. I mentioned the strategic plan, and nothing really happens well unless you have a plan. So I want to bring up Laura Brown, and I want to make sure I got her name right tonight. She has been working on a transportation development plan for the county, and I want to turn it over to her, and she can go through some information which I hope you find very interesting. So Laura, thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Brown, and I am happy to be here with you today. I'm going to share a little bit more plan information with you. This is a, thank you. As Dave mentioned, this is a transportation, or transit, I should say, specifically transit development plan. So it's a 5-year plan, kind of builds on, you did a lot of work in your strategic plan, but this one is focused just on transit, just on transportation issues. And you're going to talk a lot today, and I'm excited to hear it all, about VIA and the microtransit service. And then we know that there's fixed route service and demand responsive service in the area. So this plan looks at everything and ties it together. So this is our chance to take a comprehensive look at it. And I work for a consulting company out of Dayton called RLS and Associates, and we are happy to be here with Lorain County Transit and working with ODOT as well to do this study. So I'm going to share a couple of statistics with you and just kind of give you a little information so you have an idea of what we have been looking at. One of the main topics, as was mentioned here, is getting people to work. So of course we want to get people everywhere, but getting people to work is one topic that we want to kind of focus on in this talk today at least. And what are some of those challenges? And ViaLC has come in and tried to really, and has successfully taken a chunk out of some of those challenges and made it more possible for people. And so let's take a big comprehensive look again and a 5-year plan at that and come up with potential solutions. So the unemployment rate right now, well these numbers are from January, but in the United States it was about 4% unemployment. States. In Ohio, about the same, 4.6%. And in Lorain County, a little bit higher at 5%. And when you have the unemployment rate makes a big difference, right, on the workforce availability. When you have a lower unemployment rate, that means that everybody has a job, right? So it's hard to find more qualified people to come and work. It's hard to make when you're an employer, hard to make your place the place people want to come to. You need to be competitive, you need to have some advantages there, and transportation could be one of those. On the flip side, when unemployment is higher, people who are working sometimes are covering for 2 people or 3 people, and they're working extra hard, and they're really stressed out. And things are moving really fast, and transportation can be a benefit for those folks as well, because it helps reduce stress. It's one less thing for them to worry about, one less thing to think about. They just know that ride's going to pick them up and take them where they need to go, and they don't have to worry about that part. They can just relax on the way to work. So that's one of the big advantages that transit brings to our workforce, and one of the things we want to make sure Lorain County has that option to have. Employers know from just national surveys and national statistics, employers know that employees who ride share using transit of some sort are more reliable. They're more reliable than folks who might be sharing a car with somebody else in their household, or a car that might break down sometimes, or maybe no car at all. So transportation can help reliability, help people get to work every day. As an employer, it also there are advantages to having transportation. There's a tax-free benefit program that employers could take part in. It's a federal tax benefit program, and it sets aside pre-tax dollars. So if you're an employer and you want to talk about that, I'd be happy to talk later about that. But that's some advantages to the employer who helps support transit by contributing to make sure that the service is available in your area to get your employees to work and contributing to the cost of transit that way. It attracts people to jobs, I kind of said that already. And also customers, you know, if you're a retail business, a bus going by, or a Via car that can take people to your store is very attractive, makes you more competitive as a retailer as well. From the side of the employee, it's affordable, it's convenient, it also makes your budget go farther. So if you have transportation costs, you also have housing costs, you have grocery bills, everything's going up, everything's more expensive right now. So having that affordable transportation option, again, helps your budget, helps that employee's budget go a little bit farther. It maybe opens up a choice for where they can live. There are different prices for houses in different areas, and if there's transit in one area, you may have to choose that area if you're limited to that, and it might mean higher rent, or maybe it's not where you want to live, but you have to because that's your ride, that's where the ride goes. So having more transit available to more places also frees up the housing market, lets people to live where they like to live. It's an option for employees who do not have a reliable access to a personal vehicle. Maybe there's only one vehicle in the household and 2 drivers that need to get to work, or 3 or 4 that need to get to work. It also, not just work, but if that one person takes the car to work, then the other person can't run any errands during the day or go to their appointments during the day if there was no transportation. So it just helps the whole family that way as well. Lots and lots of benefits to it. It's a really low stress way to travel. If you haven't used transit, I encourage you to try it. Once you figure it out, the first time it might be a little stressful or a little scary if you're not used to using it, but you'll find quickly that it is reliable and is something that you can count on and not worry too much about. I have some maps here that might be a little hard. Sometimes they're hard to see on slides, but I can talk to what they say. If you can't see it. So this is a housing and transportation index. You can look that up. It's a website. You can search anywhere in the United States on it. And if you look at Lorain County, you'll see that on average, Lorain County residents spend about 22% of their household budget, their household income, just on transportation expenses in Lorain County. And what the map shows is the darker areas are spending the higher, like closer to 30 or 22%. I'm sorry, closer to 28% is the high range. The darker shaded areas and the lighter shaded areas are spending less on their transportation expenses. Makes sense that the rural areas are spending more. There's more gas money, more traveling, and that sort of thing. Then you put that together with how much are people spending on housing. The average Lorain County resident spends 25% of their income on housing, and this map is the same. The dark blue shaded areas are the higher housing cost areas, and the lighter green is the lower cost housing areas. I'm going to put this together with this map that shows the percent of the population that's living below the federal poverty level in Lorain County. And the darkest areas there show that it's a 65% of the population, 44 to 65% of the population living below the federal poverty levels in the darkest shaded areas. So you've got some in Elyria, some in Lorain, and Oberlin has some mid-range in North Ridgeville and kind of scattered around the county. But that combined with the housing costs and the transportation costs, that helps us plan transit. That helps us know where we need to put those resources and try to address the needs. This is another statistic that goes with that, and that's 0 vehicle households. So the darkest shaded areas on this map show 25 to 38% of the households in those block groups do not have a vehicle. So that's quite a bit, a quarter of the households in those block groups. And again, we see some in Elyria and Lorain primarily, and some up higher even along maybe Avon Lake area. This one goes back to our job access point. So all those statistics are important because anybody who needs to get anywhere needs a ride, and those are important. This one is particularly focused on access to jobs again. the map, I'm sorry, it's allergies. The map on this side is the population density map for the county, and it just shows you where the most people live, right? And we match that up with, well, where do they go to work? And we don't know person to person where they go to work, but the map over here has the circles, so the blue and red, the big red circles are the largest places where the most employees are, places of work, and the little tiny circles are small businesses and less employees. So we can kind of match that up. Are the employees and the employers in the same place? And one thing that I noted when I looked at it is kind of this North Ridgeville area where you have higher population densities, and you do have a lot of employers here, but they're more medium range and a few large ones there, but lots and lots of people there and lots of employers. And looking at the transit service in that area might be something that we want to key in on this transportation development plan. And the same goes, we'll look at each community and how it works together for employment. So that's kind of a little snapshot of where we are with the transit development plan. We started it, it's been almost 3 months since we started the plan, and we'll have some alternatives together to be considered in the next month or so. Big thing we consider all these alternatives and recommendations, but how do we do it? And you can't do it without the funding. So I wanted to just leave you with one little last comment about funding for transit, and that is that it comes from a variety of different places, right? Partnerships. So it comes from federal, state, and local resources. This is a pie chart of funding for Lorain County Transit from 2023. So it's a little bit dated, but it shows that 54% of the funding was federal, 18% came through the state, 25% was local grants and contributions, and then a small percent of it, 3%, was directly generated, so advertising and passenger fares and things that people are paying out of pocket. And that's pretty typical budget, pretty typical pie chart percentages for public transit in a community like this. That's all I have. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and can't wait to hear the rest.
So we've heard a lot today about ViaLC. Well, now why don't we hear from the folks at ViaLC and talk a little bit about the program and what their successes have been. And you'll be, I believe, very impressed with their statistics and the success of the program. So I'll turn it over to Sarge, and he can take it from here.
Just to introduce myself quickly, I'm Sarge Cassett. I'm on the VIA team. I lead our company's partnerships in the Midwest. So I get the opportunity to really go to all different states around us here and visit a lot of different microtransit plans. They're big, they're small, they're one city, they're two cities, but what I can truly say here is that this community has truly embraced microtransit in a way that we don't see very frequently across this region. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you for spending the time here, really being invested in transit. There's some stats I was reading last night from the American Public Transit Association that for every $1 that's invested in transit, $5 of economic returns are sought. For every person that rides, every household that uses public transit, you can save on average, I think it was $13,000 a year, and that's meaningful. And so to see folks like you here at the table really engage in transit, I think that's really meaningful. So thank you so much. And from VIA's standpoint too, I want to say thank you to the commissioners, to the county for supporting this program. It's a leap, right? It's, when you think about transit traditionally, you think about big buses, you think about trains and paratransit, dial-a-ride services like Commissioner Moore was writing. Microtransit's fairly new still. It's maybe not as new as it was. I think a few years ago when we started talking about microtransit, everybody thought we were very radical. Now it's just another thing that everybody seems to be doing. But at the same time, it is a leap. It's very different. So I wanted to say thank you to the commissioners, to the county for really embracing the idea of trying something different, and we're really excited to see how successful it's been. Now, the way that I really am proud of the service, and I think VIA is very proud of the service, is by comparing it to some of the peer services that we see around the region. So what you see over here is a graph that shows how quickly ridership picked up in Lorain County relative to a peer city, to our friendly neighbor in the state up north where we are right now. But as you can see, that green line right there, the green line is actually the ridership pickup of that city. But when you look at the very first month of the ridership, the people that were engaged with Lorain County Transit, that engaged with ViaLC, it happened quickly. And we were just so excited to see how many people were really invested in seeing, or in accessing really good transit, getting to jobs, getting to healthcare, getting to social activities, whatever that might have been. And I think it truly shows that there's been a need here, and we're really glad that the county chose to find a really interesting way to address it. And as more people ride, as your employees, as your constituents, as your community members ride this, the service just becomes more and more efficient. And if you look again to some of the peers across the Midwest, we're moving about close to 4 passengers per vehicle hour. And in the microtransit world, that may not mean much to you all, not necessarily being involved in microtransit day to day, but from our standpoint, that's a really, really strong service. The fact that we can do this with the smaller vehicles, with the more dynamic routing, the hours that we're serving, it's a truly efficient service that's working really, really well for the community. And we think it can just get better as more people start to ride it. And with that, we truly do want more people to ride it, and we're trying to find different ways to do that. So for one example, earlier, I think in December, we actually updated the application for folks that are native Spanish speakers. So if you are a Spanish speaker and you open up the application now and your phone is set, whether it's an iPhone or an Android device that's set to Spanish, the actual entire app translates to a Spanish experience. We also did update the website to be available in Spanish as well. And these are kind of, on the edge, small things that we can do to just attract new riders, get more people invested in the service and engaged in being able to use it day to day. So as you're going back to your communities, your employees, you have members of your organizations that come to you and ask questions and have feedback. We'd love to hear that. We know that the service is performing really well. We also know that we can improve. So I think the community feedback is absolutely critical as we think about what's next for ViaLC. And Via as a company, we are the operators of the service. We provide the technology behind it as well. And as a tech company, we're always trying to find ways to improve how the technology works and make it smarter, make it better, make it faster. And as we do that, I think it's really going to truly impact how the overall operation here in Lorain County works as well. Commissioner Moore mentioned data. I think data is incredibly important as you evaluate transit. How do we get more of it? How do we get more granular data, more very specific data, not only personal information of riders, but where are people going to and from? How are they getting there? What times of day are they using the service? And I think all that information really starts to inform things like Laura and her team are doing with the transit development plan to really figure out how do people want to move across the county? Where do they want to go? What times? And then how do we use that to inform future fixed routes and future other types of mobility? So we're very excited to be able to provide that data in a really meaningful way, and hopefully an easy to digest way too, with tools that are being used in the background by Lorain County Transit, like Remix and other types of software. So really great visualization of how you all in the community are moving around using ViaLC. And in the future too, as new bus routes start to emerge around the county based on the work that Laura and her team are doing, we want to make the connectivity across the county even better. So imagine that you're in Lorain and you are looking to go to Avon for work, and there is now a new microtransit node, let's say in Avon. This would not be an experience where you have to open up a couple of different apps and you have to figure out when the bus is coming and maybe connect your ViaLC to the bus station and then hope your bus is going to come at the right time. All of this journey planning can happen in one single experience. So you're at your home, you book a ride that says I want to go to Avon. The app itself can tell you that, okay, this ViaLC is going to pick you up in 15 minutes, it's going to drop you off at the bus station. You're going to wait 7 minutes because we're real-time tracking those buses. And that bus is going to arrive, you're going to get on that bus, and you can maybe pay for that ticket on the wall, take that 7 stops, and you get to your final destination. So all that journey planning in one single experience. And we just really want to make it easier and easier for riders to use public transit, because the easier it is to use, the less likely folks are to use a different alternative instead of just saying, I'll just drive instead. We want to make it as easy as possible and as simple as possible to access public transit, and that's what our technology is being built to do. And mobility is changing as well, right? So the way that people move around day to day, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, we know these things are coming. And as they become more widespread in the consumer world, they will become more widespread also in public transit. We're seeing electrification all across public transit, and AVs are starting to become a thing as well. And as that happens, we, as VIA, are developing partnerships to bring these things to our partners too. So in the future, as this technology continues to emerge, and we feel like we can serve our riders better using these technologies, that's what we're going to start to implement with you as well. So look for changes from VIA. We're really excited to continue to partner with you on this service, find really smart and efficient ways to move more people around, get people to where they need to go, and create a great rider experience around it. So just to kind of wrap up here, I just want to say I'm really, really excited about the data that we're seeing here in Lorain County. I don't want to steal Karen's thunder, but I think you're going to really appreciate it as well. So thank you again for your partnership. Really appreciate the time here, and I'm really excited about ViaLC.
So next, we're going to hear some success stories from VIA, from some elected officials and some organizations that have really benefited from VIA. So we'll call Mayor Brubaker to come speak on behalf of the city. Commissioner Moore gave us explicit instructions to hold the mic and give 30 seconds.
That's the reason why I'm with my friend here, is because him and I were arm wrestling and I came in second place. So, my name is Kevin Brubaker. I'm the mayor here in the city of Elyria, and I want to start off by thanking VIA, Karen and Pam for their leadership, but most importantly to me is the relationship that I've been able to build with Commissioner Moore, specifically on the Lorain County Commissioners. When I took office in January of 2024, we started to have conversations, particularly about the mall, and it grew into this program. But I can tell you, to build off of what Commissioner Moore said, at least in Elyria, there has never been the relationship that I'm aware of, at least in the last 20 years that I've been involved with the city, between the city and the county commissioners. So being a part of this pilot program with our sister city, Lorain, this has been a very positive, successful program for the city. And I can tell you, I don't know what Councilman Armstrong talked about last night on behalf of the city. I was unable to be here. But I can tell you a success story that just came to mind earlier today when I was thinking about what to say and how important this has been to the city. There's 2 points. The first one is, when I took office, I inherited Aldi's in our 5th ward on the south side of town was leaving. They closed up and they built a new one over at Chestnut Commons. That left my south side without any grocery store whatsoever. And then the Family Dollar store closed right across the street from it. Now, unfortunately, that building is in the township, so even as I am working with the owner of that building, and I'm working with our economic development team and an organization we hired, it's very difficult to market that when you don't control it. I can't offer any payments, I can't offer any economic types of financing for somebody. So what I did is I immediately took our Parks and Rec van that we had purchased, and I placed it over in the 5th Ward to transport people from the 5th Ward, specifically from our South Branch Library, to Aldi's. And that worked very well. And as soon as the Chronicle Telegram reported on that, I got a call from Commissioner Moore. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" "I'm trying to help our residents out." And then he shared with me VIA. And then immediately I started meeting with and having conversations with Pam and Karen. And that has led us to where we are today. We are, as a city, as an administration, committed to partnering with the county to keep this program going in the city of Elyria. And I know, talking to Mayor Bradley, which I talk to quite often, they are committed in Lorain, and I know they got some other things with these other vans and stuff that they may have coming soon. But I would like to see it throughout the county, because the one issue that I hear, and this is a pilot program, and when I share with people that this is a pilot program, it's not the end all to fix all. The 2 things I hear is, one is we only go to 6:30. Well, what about the 3rd shift people? Okay, that's a fair assessment. But when I share with them, this is a pilot program, we're collecting data, we're collecting numbers to see where we go in the future, that tones that down. But the second one is how do I get from Elyria to Avon, or Elyria to Lorain? And I know we met a few months ago with Lorain, and we have this opportunity with a rail that's through there and whatnot. So that is a concern. And again, it's a pilot program. But just 3 weeks ago, I was coming into City Hall, it was pouring rain down, and there was a lady standing in our vestibule. She had no umbrella. I said, "Hey, you need to get your car in the parking lot. We have an umbrella upstairs." And she said no, and she asked who I was, and I told her. And she was waiting on VIA to pick her up. And she had stopped at City Hall to pay her utility bill, and she paid her income tax, which I thanked her for. But she shared with me that she had been using VIA for about 4 months. She had gotten a job in the city. She had no idea how she was going to get to that job. And she's seen an ad in the Chronicle Telegram with the infamous picture of Mayor Bradley, myself, and Commissioner Moore. And she called and she set it up. And she takes that vehicle every day to work. And it takes it to one of our businesses in Elyria. And when I took office, one of the things that I did, I got with our economic development director and I said, I want to start meeting with all of our top employers in the city of Elyria. And in the first 3 months, we met with 47 employers. And I will tell you, out of 47 employers, 33 of them told me that the biggest concern they have about getting employees and getting people to come work for them, because Elyria, believe it or not, has a ton of jobs in the city of Elyria that are available to residents, whether you're Elyria or Lorain County. But their biggest issue was, we can't get our people from where they live to where they work. This now takes care of that. And we, again, are committed to this program. And again, I can't thank Lorain County Transit. I can't thank the commissioners. I can't thank VIA enough. And I know Sarge and I had a conversation a few months ago in DC about this program. And I certainly hope that it's available to the entire county and be able to cross, city lines or county lines to be able to transport people, even if it means, we take them to the city limits of Elyria and Lorain, and then VIA picks them up at that point and takes them on to somewhere in Lorain, whether they're eating or shopping. But I would encourage you to continue to market this. I actually got a call a few months ago from Karen, says, hey, your ridership has dropped a little bit. Okay, we did a media blast on our social media pages, and she called me and said it picked back up again. So the idea is we still have to get information out there. We still have to share with people, because honestly, not everybody knows about it, believe it or not, because what I have found out is not everybody has a cell phone to get text messages. Not everybody listens to the radio. Not everybody watches TV. Not everybody has social media. Not everybody gets the newspaper. How they get their information, I have no idea how, if they don't have any of those things. But that's what I hear. So I evidently have to go door to door. But again, I thank everyone, and keep doing what we're doing.
Commissioner Moore, 30, it was a little more than 30. Well, now we've heard from the city of Elyria, now we hear from the city of Lorain. Is Rick Soto, is Rick?
Oh, I'm gonna tell you.
Oh, all right, Veronica. So, here, I'll talk.
I asked Rick outside of me. He said, I'm sure you'll do just fine. I can't remember if I stood in the front yesterday or not. All right, so I will do one thing I didn't do yesterday, which is introduce myself. I'm Veronica Musso. I am one of the staff engineers in the City of Lorain Engineering Department. And I am here in Jack Bradley's stead. And I'm just gonna tell you a little bit of the history of how we got here. So every 2 years, NOACA, which is our Metropolitan Planning Organization, opens up funding for CMAQ, which is funding that for mostly air quality and congestion, and they tend to target bus projects, emissions control, so maybe doing signalization, improvements, etc. in your community. And in 2023, we had a new intern, and I was like, hey, how would you like a challenge? And she's like, okay. And I said, build a bus system. Now, we had a bus system, we have a bus system, and we were interested in seeing how can we make things better. And she just thought it was great. And we started digging around and seeing who does transit well. And we heard that Sandusky does transit well. So we called Sandusky and we found the builder. She now works at Oberlin, and we got her on the phone and we started talking to her, and she said, oh, I did that when I was an intern. She said, I had just graduated and I had just started with the city of Sandusky, and they said, build a transit system. And so our intern really embraced that, and she did it a lot of study and reading in her spare time. And through this, it developed into an application. And usually, like I said, we'll do signalization improvements or roadway projects. We had never done one that was transit focused. So we spent a lot of time on the phone with NOACA, talking with them back and forth. And they said, we'll have to talk to Federal Transit, NODOT, and all these things. And we're like, that's fantastic. So the year went on, and these applications are always due in May. And they called us the day before, as Dave mentioned, and they said, you can't apply for that. We know you worked on the application for like 4 or 5 months, but you can't apply for that. The county has to. And luckily, Jack Bradley is really good friends with Dave Moore, as well as, being friendly with the other commissioners as well. And he said, let me call Dave and see if there's anything the county or Dave can do. And so Dave came down and we talked about it a little bit. And just like he said, he started to remember his dial ride experience and was like, I really think that transit, is super important to the county and I want to embrace this. He said, so let me see what I can do. And, I'll get my administrator on the phone, and that's when I met Karen and Pam and everybody else, and they all got thrown into service in about 15 minutes. And they, had their meeting the following day, because the city had already passed legislation for this. But since we couldn't apply, none of that was valid for this application. And the county did approve it, all the commissioners were in agreement, and we applied for the funding. I think we applied for $7 million originally, but they granted us about 2.8, so about half of it, because the county has a transit system. They are the fiduciary agent, they have those types of things set up already. Whereas our original plan was we had to buy buses, we had to buy equipment, there was a lot of capital outlay. So, as Commissioner Moore pointed out, the funding doesn't come in until 2027. So meanwhile, we were like, we need to gather some data. We need to know that the system that we're going to design is going to be based on people. So that software that Sarish and his firm is using, it will record if you call for a ride after hours. It will record if you want to go to Avon, if you want to go to Oberlin. So all that data is being gathered during this period. And by continuing it, it allows us to gather more and more data so that the system is more responsive. Sarish didn't talk about it today, but he did talk about it yesterday. You can have a system that's sort of like a fixed route and on demand, like microtransit, where the vehicles can flex. Whereas sometimes they can just transfer, say from the south branch of the Lorain Library to the Elyria downtown branch. And that's all it does, say for an hour during a busy time where people are transferring. And then it can also go back to just serving the community it's in. But there's a lot of possibilities there. In the city of Lorain, we have been hearing so many success stories. We spend a lot of time in Lorain working, as Dave pointed out, in different collaborations with other groups. We've heard great stories from Lorain County Community Action, from the libraries, from the schools, Dr. Sturgill at Wraparound Services at high school. It's very difficult to get kids to graduate if they can't get to school. And with transportation being, a barrier and transit being a barrier, they've really started to see an uptick in attendance since the microtransit. So we've heard tons of those stories, and we're hoping to just hear more and more as more people continue to ride and more people see improvement in the system. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, the other thing is that we sometimes forget that we are a rather large city. So the city of Lorain is the 9th largest in Ohio, and Elyria is the 14th largest. Together, we're like 120,000 people strong. And I think people forget that together, we're really strong and able to do great things. To echo Commissioner Moore's point, in that together we can really do a lot.
Well, that's the train. I thought it was reverb. So I want to bring up now Kiona to speak a little bit on behalf of LCC. What I will say is when we had the strategic plan, we had over 54 meetings over 18 months, and she's smirking now. She was probably at 60 of the 54 meetings. She was a very regular participant, very engaged, so we're happy to have her here and talk a little bit about LCCC and the impact that VIA's had on them.
Hello everyone, again my name is Kiana McIntosh Farms, and I am happy to be here amongst like-hearted individuals. What I do at the college, I oversee the wraparound resources, and those are indicated here, a few departments. But what we do is we help with the things that are listed here, and as you can see, transportation is one of those. I am originally from Washington, D.C., where transportation is always thriving. It provides individuals with a number of independence, a bounty rather of independence. And so when I came here, and I used to ride the LCT bus, And not because I didn't have a vehicle all the time. There were some times where I didn't. But likewise, because, I'm just familiar with that process. It does help to save money. It helps to save on gas. It helps to save on repairs to your car, things like that. And so it was important to me. It has always been important to me. And when I started at Lorain County Community College, believe it or not, I was a student. And as a student, I rode the LCT bus. And so this is information because this group, I was so happy to learn that this group just loves data because I have some for you. But here, we did do some data because it's important for us. And the U.S. Census data showed us that there was a commute time of about 24 minutes for most of Lorain County. Likewise, the workers in Ohio use public transportation. Now this number right here, it seems like it's very low, but this was in regards to the LCT, okay? And those of you who are familiar with the LCT, you understand that they had maybe about, and Pam and Shannon, and Karen, please forgive me if I'm wrong with this, but I believe that there were about 16 routes at one time that went down to 4 routes, right? Am I right on that? Okay. And so that is a significant change in the amount of individuals that would use the public transit, and that's why that number appears to be so low. But likewise, what we know is that in the academic year 2021, the ARC received 2,086 requests for emergency aid specific to transportation. And in that, we surveyed, and those who answered, there was 306 of those who answered, where they testified that 70% were physically, wanted to come to Lorain County Community College once per week. Likewise, 15% of those came as many as 4 times a week. And then, as you can see, there were individuals who were sharing transportation, or they were relying on transportation from others, which they didn't have. And so, again, you see that 2% of public transportation is how they utilize that. But what is really, really alarming is some of the things here. You see these testimonies where individuals talk about that they relied on their family members, that they wanted to make sure that they had a safe drop-off. One person even did, stayed in their toxic relationship, individuals, because they needed to make sure that they had transportation. So I think that those are highly important for individuals to know, the urgency of having transportation. Likewise, you will see here that in 2021 again, based off of our request that we received for emergency aid, that there are, out of those individuals that we talked to, that there was a lot of 305 of them, 14% of the requests came from 44052. And so you see these here. Shout out to Lorain because we receive a lot of your, but by all means, it shows the importance and the need for what we're doing here. And it just gives me, fuzzy feelings all inside because we have been working and partnering Lorain County Community College, hence community is our middle name, right? And we take pride in the partnerships and the different aspects, the different collaborations that we do, that we provide to the community. We have been working with Commissioner Moore for a number of years. He's a huge supporter of the aspects that we try to make sure that we are doing for and of our community. And so what we did with all of that, understanding all of that past history, and then, dealing with the things that we deal with on a daily basis, we knew that partnering was the need, right? And so we did that. We started working with Go Ohio Commute. We started working with the wonderful individuals at the local level with the Lorain County, the commissioners and all. We even started working with United Way, the mobility manager, the move board, and even, that's not listed up there, but Lorain County Public Health. They have a safety grant that they are working on and, trying to help us with our streets and different things like that. So it was necessary for us to make sure that we were putting all of our resources together. So again, that we were working towards uplifting the community in any way that we could. So we knew that it was important to engage our students. So what did we do? We held 10-minute sessions, open sessions, and actually I had the lovely Liz, if you could raise your hand over there, the mobility manager right out of United Way, to partner with me. She was at each one of those each day. Those of you who know LCCC, we have Welcome Week, the first week of the semester, and she was there for each one of the days to help make sure that we were marketing LCT and ViaLC to all of our students, because we know that it's imperative for them to have that public transportation. And this goes all the way back to when I was a student. My first job at LCCC was a student senator, and that's a part-time position there. But in that, we were able to convince administration that we needed to have a way for individuals to purchase tickets, LCT tickets at the time, that they could do with their financial aid, understanding that one of the basic needs and approved purchases is for transportation. And so we were able to do that some years ago. We still have that till this day, but now the difference is, it's not just for LCT, it's for ViaLC as well. And it has been a game changer. And so we even did something with them to make it a fun thing. We had a scavenger hunt. We had individuals taking pictures of them being at different companies and different, schools and different, just differences. They were finding their independence and they were loving every second of it. Again, the mobility manager, most people don't know what the mobility manager does, so I wanted to make sure that this information was here so that we could display just how important that role is to our town. Likewise, the move board, as I've already mentioned, for those of you who do not know what the move board is, it definitely is, it stands for Mobility and Opportunity for a Vibrant Economy. The move board has been in existence for I don't know how many years, but I can tell you that when I was back as a student senator, they were talking about creating that. So I'm not going to reveal how long ago that was, but by all means, we have individuals in this room right now that sit on that board along with me. I happen to be the chair. I was voluntold, by the way, that I was the chair of that particular committee, but it is the committee that makes sure that it goes out into the community and gets the voice and is the voice for transportation as much as we possibly can. So we're happy to be in this goal together. But the how. So what else did we do? We started blasting posts on social media because that's where everybody is, it seems like. But I've also heard that people that are on Facebook, they're only older people. And that's the only one that I have. So, it was a shock to me. It was a bit of a shock. But we have added the Via link to our email signatures. We have flyers. We have information that runs throughout the day on our campus TVs, primarily by the ARC. And of course, as I already stated, we did promotional events. And anywhere that we go, we try to make sure that we are sharing this information because we are heavily involved in the community. And then it's important for us to share some of the success because that's what it says on the agenda that I will be sharing. And so with that, even though LCCC has thousands of students, we are talking about the students who have come to the ARC specifically and have relayed that they needed assistance with transportation. That was 276 students right? We referred out of that 172 students to ViaLC. And then not just students, but staff were referred as well. So as you've heard throughout the day or throughout this time together, you know, it's about building the economy. It's about making sure that individuals can get to and from work. Well, overall, the staff have raved about it, the students have as well, and they absolutely love, to Commissioner Moore's point, you know, most people, there's some individuals that, you know, don't care nothing about no cell phone, no smartphone. They're like, what is this? This is not smart. I'm the smart one. What are you talking about? But by all means, they love, love, love the app. We consistently hear that, and we're grateful for that. But you do know that with anything, nothing is perfect, right? And so while there are success stats, there are likewise challenges reported. But I will share that out of that hundreds of students that we talked about, there were only 12 that reported to us that they had some challenges. And some of those things were like they couldn't get to class on time, they had to leave earlier than, as it states right here, their class might have been at a certain time, over at a certain time, but they didn't get a route until later in that evening. I've heard that individuals have to go to the end of Elyria or the end of Lorain, and they're let out at a gas station, and then they have to walk across the street to get another via on the, I think that's 254 on the side of Elyria. And so those are some of the things, but again, the good aspect is that that was 12 students out of hundreds of them. And so I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want you to also hear straight from a student.
Hello, my name is Dante Ford. I'm currently a student at Lorain County Community College. My experiences in riding with VIA have been overall pretty good. They have very personable drivers. There's a few that I have actually made friends with. For the most part, they're usually very on time. It's a very convenient way to get from one place to another. I find them to be very helpful, particularly to elderly or disabled passengers. I've seen some people go out their way just to do the right thing by them. One of the few things that I feel that they could be improved upon is communication between rider and driver, if there's going to be a possibility of them not showing up on time. Another thing I feel that could help them out maybe a little bit more is letting us know like a clear time when drivers actually get on the road. There has been a few instances where I assumed, since they said they opened at a certain time, that I would be able to receive a ride by a certain time, and I was almost late or did show up late for something that was important. All in all, I believe that the communication between like drivers, riders, and the parent company could be improved. But for the most part, I've had a very enjoyable experience. I feel the price is very affordable, especially for students or anyone that is attending school. It is amazing for them to be able to have a transportation. It has opened up so many avenues. I know for other students that I've talked to that usually, have problems getting here, there have been some really, really good things to come of that. Another thing I feel that could be improved upon is maybe going a little later, because I know in the instances of some students, they have to take it here and it's their only mode of transportation. And I know after a certain time, it is either very hard for them to get rides if they can get them at all. And I know some classes go far into the night. Other than that, overall, I've had a fantastic experience with ViaLC, and I hope it continues.
He did a good job, didn't he? Yes, so for me, it is important to share successes, challenges, and not just lay it in the lap of the individuals who, not just our commissioners, I think it's also important to provide some form of resolution. What can we do to help with this? And so opportunities, we believe, and I really I was here last night, and I had 2 of the individuals that are in what we call executive leadership that make decisions, and they didn't say otherwise. So I'm going with this, Commissioner, right? There we go. And so I can kind of see as one aspect of a resolution is to create a hub, make LCCC a transportation hub. We have Starbucks, we have Subway, we have classes, we have non-credit classes, we have classes that individuals can audit. There's all different types of things that we have, and we think that we know that we are a pillar within our community, and we are grateful and humbled to be that, and we would like to continue to prove that by continuing on with partnerships and collaborations with our town. And by doing this, we think that we would eliminate some of the barriers that we have there. I'm still in conversations with them about, the financial aspects, but as you'll hear from the lovely Miss Karen, there's some opportunities there as well. But by providing this Lorain County Community College as a hub, I think will help tremendously. There is power, and I often say, it's my quote, power thrives in unity. And it's a real statement, and as long as we continue to collaborate, partner, whatever word you want to use, we can truly, truly make huge impacts within this town. And I'm looking forward to that. And so, although, most of you did some form of shameless plug, I'm not left out. This is the We Care Fair. We have a We Care Fair annually. There are individuals within this very room. I see P2R in here that normally comes. There's a number of individuals that share in this, but this is what we do at the institution to make sure that our community knows what resources we have. A number of individuals, my good friend here, sitting right here in the front. By all means, if you haven't heard of this, or if you know individuals that will benefit from this, please share that with them. We're having it this year, Wednesday, September 10th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it's just exactly what it says. It's an array of resources because it's important. ViaLC will be a part of that. We continue to help to prove that this is a need within our community, and I assure you that we showed up and we showed out. Those numbers, and you'll see on these slides coming up, that somebody I'm talking about today is at the top of the list, right? And so it's important for us to keep that going. I also want to shout out the Community Foundation. I see them, y'all, I got new glasses, and I can't, I see more doing this than I do doing this. I don't know what it is, maybe it's me getting older, but there's a lot of energy and individuals in this room, and I would just love to see all of us continue to work at this to make sure it's sustained and to make sure that we are uplifting our community, which is why we're all here with the hearts that we have in this room today. So I thank you for your time, your listening, and I appreciate it.
Well, you didn't date yourself so much when you talk about us older generation using Facebook, but I had MySpace back in the day. So some younger people are quickly doing a Google search on MySpace. So before we move on to Karen's presentation, there are some county officials I'd like to recognize who are here. So I see Commissioner Gallagher is in the back. I want to recognize him and thank him for coming. We also have Kelly Smith, who works in our Economic Development Department. She does great planning for you and great work for you on behalf of the county and the administration. I also have Todd Sharkey, who I mentioned earlier, as our Director of IT. He's responsible, good or bad, for the audio and what's going on, largely good. We also have Dave Levins and Chris from Workforce Development. They recognize clearly the value of transit and doing the job they do, Lorain County, and to work, and how important transit is for that. Am I missing? We've got Pam and Shannon. Shannon's in the back. Shannon Heights been very instrumental in putting this together, and Pam is sitting right there. You all know Pam. She was with the county for a few years, and we appreciate her service. With that, did I leave anybody out? No? Okay, I don't want to leave anyone out. With that, I'll introduce Karen Perkins is our Deputy Administrator. She'll take you through the funding opportunities for ViaLC.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Karen Perkins, your Deputy Administrator. So, something's going on with the phone here. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit more about the actual contract for LCVIA and also the cost of that contract and how we're going to carry our services into the future. So I have to do double time here. I'm not used to this. Bear with me a minute. This next picture is famous. There it is, the famous picture. We've got 2 mayors and a commissioner all together. That was a fun picture to take. So today, as of today, we launched VIA in July of 24. And as of today, I guess probably within the last couple of days now, right, Sarge? We've had 50,000 completed rides. 50,000 completed rides since launch. It has become an essential part of riders' daily life, and these are folks that are using it on an everyday basis. This isn't just a one-off. These folks are relying on this transportation to get them to and from the grocery store. We heard last night from a rider who had an opportunity to take a VIA to get her hair done. She felt the freedom that gave her just to be able to do that on her own without anybody else to help her. We've gotten a lot of good rider feedback, 4.8 to 5 stars. That's pretty good. So yes, there's room for improvement. Yes, we know that. Yes, we're working towards doing some things, but anytime you improve anything, you gotta spend a little money. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. This slide shows you our top destination. And look who's number 1. Lorain County Community College, number 1. So we do appreciate the college's offer to become a transfer point for us. I think that will help us out a lot. We've heard a lot of almost horror stories about how people are crossing 254 to get from Lorain to Elyria or Elyria to Lorain in order to hop on the VIA. So, that is definitely something we have to take a look at. And if you look at this slide, all this gobbledygook that you see here, those are actually VIA rides. Looks kind of like the old Etch-a-Sketch back in the day, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Walmart, Lorain and Elyria High School, McDonald's, Mercy Regional Medical Center, Chestnut Commons, Lorain Public Library, and our fixed route transfer points. So keep this list in mind. So as we go further through the slides, we're going to come to the point where I'm going to be looking to somebody for money. That's my goal today, all right? So ViaLC connects commuters to their workplace. 45% of those surveyed respondents use the service to get to work. 45% use this service to get to work. These are new transit riders. New transit riders. I can guarantee you under our previous transit services, we weren't able to get people to work and back efficiently. They would be having 14-hour days if they had to ride a bus. So with VIA, we've increased our ridership and we're providing a much needed service to the community by getting employees to their workplaces. 17% of our respondents use the service for education. Lorain County Community College, Lorain High School, Elyria High School, especially Elyria High School. I think we helped the mayor out with a little adjustment to the boundary areas for the city of Elyria to make sure that we could get some students to the high school on time. Hopefully you got a vote out of that.
We'll find out in 3 years.
Let's see, what else do we have? 24% of those trips were for shopping centers, so we're getting people out to the grocery stores. That's huge for those who are homebound. They don't have a car to take themselves to the grocery store. VIA is able to help them out with that. You see Chestnut Commons, that's where the Aldi's moved to. Also, of course, there's Walmart River Street Square, Walmart, Meyer, and Mercy in Lorain. Riders recognize and appreciate the value of ViaLC and are excited to see it continue into the future and expand. 71% of the respondents reported household incomes below $50,000. 30% of our respondents would have chosen not to take the trip if ViaLC was not an option. This is the big one. 79% of the respondents do not have access to a personal car. That's huge. Think about it. 79% do not have access to a car. What would they do if Via wasn't here? What options do they have? Friends, family, maybe your neighbor. This pie chart, shows you how the riders choose what's important to them and what isn't important to them. Now, last time I talked to you, well, not you, but I talked to the group about Commissioner Moore telling me that he did not want any wait times to be longer than 10 minutes for ViaLC. So I was riding Via hard. So I'm watching the stats. I'm seeing those wait times going longer and longer and longer. And I'm like, oh, Dave's gonna get me. So I was pushing them to get those wait times down to 10 minutes. If you look at this pie chart, wait times, 5% wanted lower wait times. So wait times were no longer that important. The important part became the expanded service hours. We've talked a little bit about that. So afternoon shift, night shift, weekends, you know, these are some things that the riders are asking for. Also, they want to go to more places. That's going to require a little bit of planning on our part, and that's where Laura comes in. After we're done with our planning document, I think we'll be able to answer that question a little bit better as far as where we're going to go, how we're going to grow, and how we're going to make it a little bit better and more efficient. So for our short-term goals, we consider adjustments to the Lorain and Elyria zone boundaries. Some of those things we've kind of adjusted on the fly. When we saw that there was an absolute need and we were able to take it away from a lower use area and apply it to a higher use area, we were able to do that pretty quickly. This is real-time information that we get, real-time information. So when we get a phone call from Dr. So-and-so, and he explains to the commissioner, we've got this problem, I've got patients, they need to get here, but they can't because they're not in the zone. We were able to make a quick phone call and figure out a way to make that happen. Same with the mayor with his student that needed to get to Elyria High School. We didn't have to wait. It was within hours we were able to make the changes that we needed to make. Analyze trip distances. This came to light, I think, with Lorain. We have, there's a long way between, I think, the west side and the east side of Lorain. That's a pretty long route. And so we were trying to come up with ways to be a little bit more efficient, where we have to break that route up a little bit in order to get the rides to be a little bit more efficient. Explore strategies to connect Elyria and Lorain. I think we've got one strategy that we may be exploring pretty quickly by using the college as a transfer point. Also maybe looking into adding additional transfer points, I think would be a great way to accommodate some of the problems that we're having with transit. I'm calling it transit. That's something I did want to say. Lorain County Transit is fixed route, microtransit, dial-a-ride. All those services are Lorain County Transit. Microtransit is a part of Lorain County Transit. Dial-a-ride is a part of Lorain County Transit. Sometimes I think we can separate ourselves up, and we shouldn't do that. We should be all together, all one, all moving in the same direction, all getting to the final destination, which is the best public transportation system we can have in Lorain County. On-demand, longer term, assets, potential on-demand opportunity areas. Looking elsewhere, whether that's Avon Lake, Oberlin, North Ridgeville, where else will microtransit benefit Lorain County residents? So, we've asked, what is the maximum price increase our riders would contribute for a ride with the ViaLC? You can see on this chart, a lot of times we hear from those who may not be public transportation friendly that you need to increase your fares. You need to be self-sufficient. You know, why should we subsidize these rides? So, we asked the riders, how much more would you pay? I am not willing to pay more. That was the top answer. And it's not that they're not willing, I think it's more the not able to pay more. You know, that's why they don't have a car. That's why they can't afford gas. But if we get them a ride that they can get to work, give them a hand up instead of a hand out, let's help these folks be more productive members of our society. I think that's our obligation as a public servant. We need to make sure that we subsidize, and that's exactly what we're doing with our federal grant dollars, that ride cost. So I believe Commissioner Moore said the ride cost was $18 to $20. That's the funding that we're looking for. Expanded service hours. That is the most wanted ask is in service. So evening and on weekdays was a close second, maybe not even a close second. And nobody wants earlier service. Imagine that. I don't know, Slash, maybe we should change the earlier service, change the hours so we don't start so soon. I don't know. Something we can talk about. So here's where the rubber meets the road. Our current contract, in order to provide 100% pilot service of microtransit for the contract year of July 24 to July 31 of 25, $2,124,500. That's how much it costs Lorain County in our grant funds to provide the service to both the city of Elyria and Lorain. So for the second year of our contract, very small increase, much deserved. So I think we're going to give the drivers maybe a little increase, maybe. So that our year 2 contract amount goes up to $2,062,060. So now we've broken this out in between the two cities. How much for the city of Lorain, how much for the city of Elyria. Next slide. How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to keep this service going? Where do we go next? How do we make it work? This is my idea. So, county grant funding. The county is going to contribute $398,678 to the city of Lorain's microtransit contract. We will contribute $288,675,000 for the city of Elyria's contract. I call this Mayor Brubaker. Dude, I need some money.
My Via ride's here.
I said, how are we going to do this? I said, why don't we take the full amount of the cost of our contract and we'll divide it into thirds. County will pay a third, each city will pay a third. And we'll go out and look for our public and private partners to help us out and contribute a third of those. Mayor Brubaker says, I think I can do that. In fact, I think I have a NOPEC meeting. I think I might be able to ask them for some money. I don't know how that went for you, by the way. So since we are actually saving, reducing our carbon footprint, I think that's the proper way to say it. By having shared rides and being a public transportation system, we may or may not qualify for some NOPEC funding. So here's additional information that we may be able to add for some services, but it all comes back to what we're going to pay for. So if we want to continue our services, our budget's $2,060,000. If we want to add Saturday service, that's going to cost you an additional $300,000. Is that right, Sarge? Additional $300,000 for Saturday service. Extended hours, 8 p.m. on weekdays, it's going to cost us $165,000. To provide ride proposals for 90 to 95% of the requests consistently. So what we had to do is scale back and not be able to respond to as many of those calls we're getting for service, because if we do, we're going to go over our service hours, which is going to increase our contract cost. So if we are going to respond efficiently and at a snap of the finger to anybody who wants a ride, it's gonna cost $3 million. So, the numbers, they're not unattainable, but the numbers always put everything in perspective. On what do we really want, what do we really need, how do we want to see the service expand for the future. So, my ask is of each of you. Each of you obviously support public transportation. Obviously, we all want to see microtransit, Lorain County Transit grow, and we want to do the right thing for our riders. Our next ask is to anybody in this room who can tell our story, to somebody who can help us with funding. Whether you want to call your councilman, you want to call your mayor, you want to call your representative or your senator, and you need to ask them for some money. How do we get money for our microtransit service? If you know somebody that works for Ridge Tool, I'll throw that one out there. I'm an Elyrian, so. And you say, hey, Ridge Tool, you guys are benefiting. You got employees coming here to work. Maybe you can contribute towards Lorain County microtransit. So I think that if we all come together, we all go out, we all have the same message, we all ask, we all communicate, we all act as one unit, and we go out there to the public and our private partners and see how we're going to get that remaining 1/3 of our cost so that we can move our transit system forward. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Karen. So we have a few folks who have signed in to speak on their experiences with ViaLC. I'll walk over to you and hand you the microphone. Shanita Johnson. Shanetta.
Hello, my name is Shanetta Johnson. I've been writing Via since July, the end of July. Sure. I've been writing with Via for since July. I have had some things that had some problems. One, I applied for Via, so when I call the 901-5554 number, I get a message that says, "Hi Shanetta, thank you for your interest in becoming a Via Drive partner. We love to move forward with getting you on board. Check voice for a reference email or next steps, or keep an eye for a text message from us soon with future instructions. We look forward to have you on board. Goodbye," and it hangs up. So I can't call and get that message to say, "Are you a driver or a rider?" Okay. The only one I can't, and I've been calling the station like, "Hey, what's going on?" Well, I just figured out, after this long of writing, because I think that Via should know that the number has changed. It's now the 805-2940. So I think it's important that they should at least tell people, if you apply, because all that she told me was like, there's nothing I can do with it. So what happened was I got a ride to Walmart, and there's 2 addresses that are wrong on the Via, 3 addresses. One, I went to Section 8, and they took me the street over. I'm disabled, so I'm supposed to get curb to curb. The other place was the library, and they take the street over instead of in front of the front door. I went to Walmart, and instead of Walmart, which is at 4139, I think 4190, they took me to Marco's, which is at 23-something level. Okay, I said, no, I gotta go to Walmart. And they were cool. They took me down to Walmart. But when it came for me to be picked up at Walmart, I waited 30 minutes, and they went to Marco's. There was no way of me calling, because when I call, I get that message. And I just noticed that they do have a phone on there now, a little phone symbol, so you can push that and call in. Well, I didn't have a phone symbol. So I had to call Uber because I couldn't get a ride. I called at 5 o'clock, at 5:15. Somebody went to Marco's. I was, trying to I'm calling LCT, even though they're not related. And what we could do. And it's just like, so I finally got through, and I was like, I'm at Walmart, tell them to come down the street. And they left a message, a text message, Well, the text message wasn't read. So I wound up paying for Uber just to go home. Thank goodness, income tax, so I had money. Otherwise, I would have been stuck at Walmart all night. I don't know anybody here. I have no friends, no family here. My closest friends didn't have friends. I get curb-to-curb services, and it seems like if I don't ride for a while, they forget. So I feel kind of scared to put it on my credit card. I'd rather pay cash because they'll charge me $2 instead of the $1. And they'll go down the street and sit at the corner. And that's like a problem because like if I have an appointment, you know what I'm saying, and they, for some reason, forget I'm disabled and they're down the street, that's another problem. Another problem is, okay, so some of the cars have the back seat and then they have the in the back. And some cars have the back seat up. Well, I've been in a car where there was 2 women who were very large, and her hip was basically sitting outside because they squished 3 people in the back now. Her hip was hanging out the door. She could barely close the door because she was big, and it was us 3 squished in the car. So squished in. The places that have 2 doors, Home Depot, Kohl's, Walmart. The car, there should be a way that you can say, I'm at this door or I'm at that door. You know what I'm saying? Because I was sitting at the door and the person, I didn't see them come by. I don't know if they came and sat there or did they just pass by and look for me. But then they're about to leave. And it's like, there should be something so that we know which door to stand in when there's 2 doors like that. I think it should be important to tell them to read text, because if they're getting a text saying, no, the person's down the street, if they're sitting there for 5 minutes waiting on you, they need to look up and look at the text and see that it says, no, the person's down the street or the person's at the front door, or go around the building. You know what I'm saying? So instead of just sitting there 5 minutes and then driving off. Even though we're supposed to added on people, I've sat down 2 hours before my appointment and just constantly request, and got no ride. For some reason, I know that they can request their own breaks, okay? The thing is that at lunchtime, you can forget it. Everybody's on break because it's lunchtime. So, you're sitting there, or if it's a Friday, 2 hours straight. I'm trying to get, and I can't make it to my appointment. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. It's hard to get in the car. And a lot of the drivers are they really don't want to get out and help you. You know what I'm saying? And so, especially for me being disabled, I basically have to turn around and pull myself in, which is kind of hard. So I think, as far as getting up in the car, especially if you're door to door, there should be off-rate, it should give you the things so you can step in. I think that was it. Let me see. Yeah. And then I guess y'all talks about the expanding on the weekends in other towns and things like that. I was very interested in that. And I think last thing I just want to mention is that right now, I don't know if we'll be able to, but it'd be really great, if you're just going to the post office to drop something off, if you could call another car while you're in the car. You know what I'm saying? Because if I'm just going to the post office and then I get out and I know I'm just trying to drop something off, I have to wait another 30, 45 minutes just to go back home. You know what I'm saying? So that'd be really great if that, was available. And I think that was it.
Thank you for that feedback. I have one other person.
Feedback.
Russell. Okay, I've been messing up names the last 2 days. Russell.
Hi, I'm not a public speaker, never really done any public speaking. You may tell from my outfit I didn't expect to be in front of a crowd today when I woke up. I showed up a little bit late today, 15-ish minutes, and I noticed there was only one name written down for people who were gonna speak, so I figured I'd figure out by the time the meeting was over what I was gonna talk about, get another voice out there, and I saw a lot of statistics, and I love statistics, especially when they're good news. But I find that statistics often don't give people the same inspiration as a physical person being an example. I wanted to talk about my experience with ViaLC. I work at Regal in Cobblestone Square. I use ViaLC to get to and from work. I live just down the street from Elyria High. It's about a 20-minute drive to Regal from there. And when I can get a ride from ViaLC, it ends up saving me a lot of money. I don't own a car, so my options are find a ride from someone I know, which doesn't usually work out, or pay for a ride. I've been working there about 3 months, and whenever I can get a ride from ViaLC, on average it saves me, on the low end, $15, on the high end, $25 to $30 each way. And paying $20 for an Uber to work is a really big hit to your paycheck when you're making $13.50 an hour. So paying for an Uber each way for a 5-hour shift, I did a little bit of math, netted me about $20 of pay for that 5 hours paying for an Uber or a Lyft both ways. And save you a little bit of math, that's about $4 an hour. That's awful. So being able to just pay $4 to go there and back saves my wallet so much, especially right now when our hours are a little bit reduced. We haven't been getting as much business as we would hope. So I'm often getting 5-hour shifts. If I had to pay for Ubers, I don't think I would make enough to stay in a home. ViaLC, with no exaggeration, has kept me off the street for the last few months. There was a statistic, the average person, I saw it up there, Laura Brown showed a statistic, 22% of income on average goes to transportation. As you can see from my situation, when I was paying for Ubers both ways, that was a lot higher. Another thing is I do still have to pay for Ubers sometimes because often I work later than 6:30. The theater closes a lot later than that, so if I close, I do have to work that late and I do have to pay for rides home. And if I'm on a weekend, I have to pay for a ride there and back. So a 5-hour shift on a weekend, I'm basically working for $4 an hour. So when I can get rides from ViaLC, it just saves me from making $4 an hour. My roommate also works at Regal and goes to LCCC. And he uses Via to get to and from both of those places as well, because neither of us owns a car. So ViaLC has really just kept us afloat, especially in times where I have 2 jobs. One of them gives me 0 hours a week, and the other one is giving me a lot less than expected as well. So ViaLC has been very helpful. It would be incredible to see it also go to weekends and go later into the night. And I think that's about all I've got to say.
Russell, you did a great job for someone who doesn't speak well publicly. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to, Dave Levins?
I'm not sure if I need a mic. Can you hear me back there? Okay. So, you know, something struck me when Ms. Brown was doing her presentation on the amount of money that the fairs provide is 3% of the budget. And as I went through the numbers, when Karen was saying, you know, they gave $2.1 million to run the program and 50,000 drivers, that means that everybody that paid $2 was subsidized by $40 per ride. So that's incredible to me. But just remember that when we're talking about, you know, not getting there, you know, quickly enough or whatnot. But at Jobs and Family Services, we're trying to employ people, we're trying to create a workforce and work with businesses to bring it all together. We're trying to stop this cycle of poverty. I mean, I've been at the job for 6 weeks, but I know the biggest barrier to employment is transportation. I can see it every day. People can't get to work. And it's no wonder that Avon is starting a transportation, because all those jobs they have came from Elyria and Lorain at one time. And I see that because everybody's working in Elyria or working in Avon, and they were in Elyria and Lorain. They can't afford to live out that way. So I wonder how much the businesses should be putting in. When Karen asked about money, we just put $1 billion, right, into the Ford plant. Gosh, I wonder if they'd be interested in throwing some money in, or Bendix would be interested in throwing some money in to help us subsidize this program, because they're the ones that need the jobs. They would be dramatically helped by it, as well as the employees. So just food for thought. You know, we have these big businesses going on, expansions going on. It doesn't hurt to ask, right, Dave? They can only say no, but if we don't ask, we're not doing our job. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dave. So Pam made a sharp commitment to be out of here at 4 o'clock, and I'm looking at the clock right now, and it is 4 o'clock. So I want to thank you all for coming. We do have extra box. If anybody would like to take one home with them, please do. And thank you again for coming.